I feel like, holy crap, is this like a certificate on spiritual trespassing? Like, I understand that people are giving permission for this kind of thing to happen, but what I really emphasize to my students is I always want to know, when it comes to like a psychic doing that kind of work, why are they doing this work?
I would always want to challenge a channeler how they take care of their energy field and what their legitimate process is of clearing the coding in their light body, clearing the fragments that they've picked up from other people, how they navigate darkness and interference. Otherwise, honestly, I don't respect the channeler. I won't respect the channeler who doesn't talk about how they actually purify the frequency of their field to be the channeler, if that makes sense.
We are these wireless beings that have been given something that is the most beautiful treasure in the universe, and that is power. And that is what I believe entities feed on, is your power source. And they do it through fear, right? And I have this whole way that I describe it, that they're like these black octopuses that can land on us, send an antenna up to the brain, and then pulse fear thoughts. And the more that you think the fear, they're like nursing on you.
My guest today is Sophie Frabotta, a master healer, author, and trailblazer in the spiritual community, with a master's degree in transpersonal psychology and a globally recognized spiritual life coach certification. Her work bridges psychology and spirituality, not to make healing more comfortable, but to make it more honest. Sophie teaches something that quietly challenges the foundations of modern lightwork. That true lightwork isn't about avoiding darkness. It's about developing night vision. She believes that being brave enough to face your own shadow isn't a detour from growth. It's a portal to your next level, and that every block, trigger, or delay isn't something to fix, clear, or transcend, but rather it's feedback, showing exactly where unhealed energy still lives. But here's the tension I want to explore. Because in so much of the spiritual community, darkness is treated as low vibe. Discomfort is labeled misalignment, and light is something to stay inside of at all costs. And in Sophie's world, if you can't see in the dark, you can't actually hold the light. So, today, we're asking the question that most people avoid. Is true light work dark work? Let's find out. Whew, that was a mouthful, Sophie.
Love it.
One take. I'm so proud of us. Welcome to the Spiritual Debate Podcast.
Thank you so much. I am thrilled to dive into this topic because of where my story with light began, which was really inside of the dark. And so for me, it's such an authentic entrance into this conversation, and I love it, and I'm happy to be here. So thank you for having me.
Well, if memory serves me correct, that's actually kind of how we found each other, because I had a post that was going quite viral at the time about visibility. And so for our listeners that are tuning in here, Sophie found me, I think, on a post originally about visibility. And what I was speaking about was how visibility is one of the main food sources for nefarious entities. Because the more visible we are in the world, the more vulnerable we are when we're in our soul's light. And nefarious entities love to feed off that impact and that vulnerability. And so, Sophie, do you want to walk us through how you found my work initially and why that post particularly held value and merit to you?
Yeah, so I can remember scrolling. I was literally like in between meetings, and I was opening Instagram to check a DM, but you pop up like, I just opened Instagram and you popped up. So it was like very divine. And you were like, I don't know what the hook was, but something about your visibility is actually a food source. Yeah. And with what I went through in 2025, I had massive virality, 2022, 2023, 2024, and grew by, 400,000 followers. Wow. So I felt like that was really speaking to me. I've had massive visibility. Mm-hmm. And then, Facebook is now growing as well. There was a lot of eyes on my frequency. And 2025 was such a difficult year where I really felt like, is there a spell on me? Like, is there something happening here? And I worked with my healers and my different coaches to look at different areas. And I was doing like energy work and light work and even curse clearing in my field. And some of it goes back into the Akashic records, not so much about an external thing on me, but more of an internal program that I brought that I needed to clear around scarcity that was getting inflamed. So all these different layers that I had been working on, but I hadn't really considered, believe it or not, like I'm shining a bright light and that is my goal. And I learned to have the light, that like the light is not, I mean, I was 20 years ago, I was suicidal. Like I was bulimic, depressed, anxious, like living on darkness. I feel like riddled with entities. But in that darkness, something in my soul said, cry out to God, the creator. And so that created a sliver for me, and the light punctured the darkness and started to come in. And then I did the work, and I was in therapy at the time. And then I found coaching and I did the work to the light casted out the darkness. But then I had to learn to be a carrier of the light. Right. So anyways, to bring it back to your question, when I saw that post, I was like, holy moly, I need to explore some other territory here in my healing with 2025 energies. And just if there's any interference, as I know you talk about a lot of the time. And that's what ultimately, I was just like, everything you were saying felt like you were speaking to me, when that can happen. You're like, oh my gosh. So then I reach out and I'm like, girl. And then we were talking, I was like, have we known each other for lifetimes? Because I feel like I know you. Like,
yeah. It was crazy because then I was in Florida and we like tried to make it work. Like we were like, we're going to connect. Let's do the podcast here in person together. We have to connect. It just felt like I had met one of my people. And I have been, and I'm sure you've been as well in your own way, on quite a lonely journey of owning my light. And what happens when you really start to own your light is you realize how many tethers you have to people who were unconsciously or consciously kind of pulling from it. And when you start to own it, you're like, oh, wow, you were actually just trying to like gain something from me. And now that I'm radiating my light more and I'm not actually available for those pullings or those tethers, oh, there goes that friendship. Oh, there goes that connection. Oh, okay. I thought this was something else. Client relationships, there were so many shiftings. And then now I'm in this place where I get all of these new people in my world like yourself. And it's like we just see the world from similar essences. And you can feel when somebody has the light of God in their body and they've done the work to truly embody it. And that's what I feel from you. And it just makes me so excited for where this conversation is going to go today and where we can kind of dig in. But I want to start here because you mentioned something that I think is really important, which is that on our awakening journey, there comes this point where we realize, wait, is there something else that's going on here? Because I'm doing the curse work and I'm doing the shadow work and I'm working with my therapist, my healers, I'm clearing the energy, but there's something else. And I often find that this is when people confront interference. It's like the next kind of part of the awakening. Because when I had my awakening, I was healer, love and light, drug dealer. It was like, do you want some light? I can like white light into your heart. Like it was just tarot and oracle and astrology and all of the things, like just feeling like the magician without any responsibility or repercussions. And then my experience happened in 2022 with entities. And I was like, now this is an awakening that I feel like needs to be talked about. And so I am not surprised that you went through some sort of experience like that, but now where are you standing with interference, or what did you come to understand about 2025? Talk to me about your experience with the dark and what you've come to learn about it. Hey there, it's me, V. So, as you can imagine, this is my first podcast, and so I'm learning all of these new ropes. And did you know how important ratings were? I didn't. I had absolutely no idea, and I'm so thankful for the support of my team for reminding me of how important having your ratings, your honest reflection of the podcast, how much that benefits us. So, I'm that annoying person in the middle of everyone else's episodes that I fast forward that hopefully you're listening to right now. And if you've got 30 seconds, it would mean the absolute world to us if you could take a moment and just rate this podcast, give it a thumbs up, share it with your bestie that you want to go head to head with so we can continue to spread this message, debate about the truth, find what the truth is, and have the kinds of conversations that truly help us awaken in integrity. All right, back to the episode.
Yeah, so it's kind of hard to describe because I'm still making some transition in terms of this, but I want to go back 1 second and talk about the awakening, because I feel like what you're talking about lives in a certain sequence, and I think this can be really helpful for us to wrap our head around. So I feel like we have 3 stages of awakening. We have what you're calling the first stage, the bliss, the angel numbers, the magic, the cards, the crystals, the synchronicities, all this beautiful stuff. Then we go through the second phase, which is the metamorphosis. This is where we face our shadow, our wounds, our unmet needs, our survival patterns. This is the space where we start doing the deeper inner work clearing. And this is the space where a lot of people get stuck because they don't ultimately go deep enough, I believe. I feel like at the end of that is where we start to meet what you're talking about, the interference. So that's still, I would say we have stage 1, and there's definitely, I think, some depth to all these stages that we could write an entire manual on, but just to break it down in simple terms. So then you have this interference at the end of the metamorphosis cycle. And then once we come to some sort of conclusion or understanding, and I believe it all is around your own core power. So we are these wireless beings that have been given something that is the most beautiful treasure in the universe, and that is power. And that is what I believe entities feed on, is your power source. And they do it through fear, right? And I have this whole way that I describe it, that they're like these black octopuses that can land on us, send an antenna up to the brain, and then pulse fear thoughts. And the more that you think the fear, they're like nursing on you, right? So and I have met people covered in these octopuses. And then when I've gone to ask their higher self, should I even say something? And their higher self says no. Like, I respect, I don't spiritually trespass here. This is not my business. I'm here. If you need me, higher self, bring them back to me. Anyways. So once we clear like that entity level, I feel like the interference is more sophisticated than just entity octopus level. The interference, I think, starts to come in at the stage you're talking about with shining your light bigger. That is when a different type of interference comes in and it makes you start doubting your purpose. And that's where the antenna goes, is like, I'm not good enough. I shouldn't be doing this. No one cares. No one likes me anyways. It doesn't matter, right? Those are the frequencies that I was facing last year. And then I would have students come in that have had massive transformation and be like, this is how you changed my life, and da-da-da-da. And I'm like, well, I didn't change your life. The work that you dedicated yourself to in our programs changed your life, right? Because I teach empowerment. But anyways, so what I realized is that when I could plug back into what I would call my core column of power and really be plugged in through all 13 chakras as a unit, that thing dried up. Well, I don't know what it was. I don't even care to really seek more information on it. I felt like you don't even get my attention. I just know the medicine I need. So to me, to answer your question, it was all about that end of interference for me was about plugging into my pure core column of personal, spiritual, energetic, human power that I've been given.
I love that you're talking about power, because one thing I think a lot of starseeds and light workers know is that they have a lot of power. But I like to say that you don't know if you have power until you're actually in it. Like saying, I know I'm so powerful because you were a priestess in a past life, and then actually embodying the priestess in this present life, that's power to me. In this now, how are you holding the multitude of frequencies, of visibility, of sight, of shadow, of light simultaneously without wobbling? So when you're talking about that column of light, I get that. Like, I feel this divine current that is unmoving and unshakable and unwavering that we're really, I think, aiming for. Now, with that, I feel like so many leaders go through this, Sophie, and they don't fucking talk about it. And this is why I'm so passionate about the Spiritual Debate podcast, because I've sat down with extraordinary leaders like yourself. And it's one of those things that they went through the evil or the darkness, but then they kept it in the darkness because they decided to lead with more purpose and lead with more wisdom and lead with more understanding now that they know what they know now, but without the education or taking a lot of us who went through this on the journey. I think a lot more of us are going through this interference, but because the community on the whole has this like weird relationship still with, I think, the McDonald's of spirituality, which is like getting the fast high and the fast hit and the access and the opening and the channeling and the creating, and not enough of the embodiment of the spirit. I think a lot of us struggle with this, and then it never actually makes it to the light of conversations. I'm curious what your thoughts are. Having gone viral, having connected with other people, has this been a journey that you have felt exists in a lot of other people and they haven't talked about it? Or they just haven't experienced it yet because maybe they haven't gotten through that middle process you're talking about in the 3 stages of awakening?
Yeah. I mean, I don't, you know how in a business world, you're supposed to like do market research. And you're supposed to like look at other businesses and know what's being done. I feel like that is not a part of my business practice. So to be quite honest, I don't really know what other leaders are going through. I only know what I'm going through, and I know what triggers my shame. And I feel like what 2025 was such a big trigger of shame. So the interference that I felt coming through was about, hey, let's do this. Let's take away validation that she's been getting from all these viral posts, right? She's been getting all this validation, 400K views, 1 million views, 3 million views, 9 million views, the traffic, all the stuff. She's silently, and this is where I think God is so fascinating because God will use it for good. So God was like, okay, yeah, sure, do that because my girl is going to wake up in the process. So I feel like what happened is the interference, I don't know what it is. I'm not going to even name it because I don't want it doesn't deserve that power. But what happened is it like I just started losing visibility and my views were going from 100,000 to 50,000 to 20 to 10 to 5. And I was what was happening inside of me was detaching from validation, detaching from all these things, allowing my work to shine, even though it wasn't being recognized or validated by the algorithm or by other people's likes, and really stepping into my purpose without that, even though I had gotten a taste of it, right? I had had years, 3 consistent years of virality, at least 2 to 3 very viral posts. My first viral post got 4 million views. This was a quote post, a square quote post in 2022. Went viral over a weekend. I got 30,000 followers, right? So I got used to that. And then I feel like it turned on me, but God used it for good. And so what I had the opportunity to do in full transparency was to really look at my own space that needed approval, recognition, validation from out there, saying, you're good enough. We love you. And me turning the tape around, coming back into my power and saying, I am good enough. I say yes to my mission, even if it becomes anonymous and no one hears it. I say yes. And so to me, that was a new kind of visibility because it was like me first. I see me first. Then I get to shine through the layers. And the more that I can get comfortable with this new capacity of not needing survival programming, which I believe is that recognition, validation, approval, that is that survival programming. It's all the same kind of wound. The second that I detach from that and I am visible to myself, my mission is visible to myself, then I can really start to build. And so that's where I feel like I am now. I am building off a new platform internally, and you can see it in my Instagram. The things I'm sharing, the things I'm posting, they're different. I'm not chasing data and algorithm. I want to post from my heart and my purpose and my light. And
Yes.
also sometimes that means I don't post because I'm still figuring it out. So
Yeah.
that's as transparent as I can get about what happened last year and where I
Yeah.
am now. You know, it's like kind of like exposing what I went
Mm.
through. And it makes me feel like, man, it's that saying, you know, your shame is the greatest source of your power.
Yes.
You expose it, whew, it loses power.
So true. And what I love that you shared here is that it's something that, like I said, I think it hides for so many people, so many creators' experiences, but I think we all go through it. Something I firmly stand by is that I believe that a lot of us have built our businesses from trauma. And I think that you can build a really beautiful business from trauma. I built $1 million business from wanting to not get rejected and from wanting to belong in the world. But then something happens and you realize that that is not a sustainable embodiment. That is not sustained by the light of God. That is sustained by a download and a hope that people like it so you can feel like you belong in the world. And I really relate with that. And I think I spend a lot of time listening to the greats of our time. And there seems to be a very deep insecurity that runs through every single person I have ever watched, because there's this part of them that just didn't understand the traditional school system, didn't understand suffering, didn't understand the way the world was constructed, didn't really feel like fitting in. And that drove a reason to create. And even though God turned it into good, for a lot of people, they don't integrate that part of them that built their business or built their vision or built their mission, because there's a child in them that never felt like they mattered or belonged in the construct of this human world. And I think the transparency is really important, because in our spiritual journey, I think a lot of people, they think they need to be this high vibe thing, or they need to build and transcend all of their shadows. But I think both truths can exist, that you can build an extraordinary business from shadow. And in order to be able to sustain it, it has to be sustained by the light of God, and God has to turn that water to wine. Like, we have to do this deeper work so that we're not so in the world, but we are of the world, overlaying a new frequency of unconditional love and unconditional acceptance and self-validation and self-reassurance. And so I love that you're sharing that here, Sophie, and that this is a safe space for you to be able to do that, because same. And similarly, I've been on that journey of doing the dark work so I can embody my light work, because a lot of people don't understand interference yet. And so I get this pushback of your fear mongering, and then it hits my rejection wound, and I go, oh my God, no, that's their truth. They're allowed to have those truths. Like, you want to be in the frequency of truth, Victoria, then you need to give other people permission to be in their frequency of truth, even if it's not truth for you. And then I go,
Yeah.
okay, right. It's not just my truth. That's dogma. It's everybody's truth. And even if the truths that they have about me are not true, I need to do this deeper, dark work on myself so that I can actually own my light in the world, truly embody my light. And I think a lot of creators, particularly last year, they had to go through this like excavation of where anyone or anything was still having power over their light. And because of that, the warfare that happens as a byproduct of that, I think right now is more sophisticated and more advanced, perhaps I would like to say, because the fear is starving. The frequency that has been creating these entities, it is starving for light. It is starving for our light and our life. And so it's going to get more sophisticated. Now, with that, there's something that's been on my heart that I want to dig in a little bit here, because you mentioned like you could feel this interference, but you don't even really want to go there. You know, like, I'm not even going to try to understand that. For me, it is really important that I understand that. And maybe it's because of what I do as an educator, but I also think when I understand it, it helps my confidence to not recreate it or to master a formula that works for my energy field so that I don't allow an entry point in my field again. for you, what allowed you to go, that doesn't actually matter? Why does that not matter to you to know it? I'm curious.
So it's something around, I feel like what you're saying is very true about, hold on, I'm getting this alert on my computer. Let me just
No worry.
turn this off. It's like going on and on and on, this continuity camera. Okay. Um, so when I do my, what I would call interdimensional work, I go into my inner worlds and travel through dimensions, travel through layers. I have met lots of different guides, entities. I go to the Akashic Records, quantum field, do stuff like that.
Mhm.
I feel like what you said about a new level of sophistication. I'm not sure where to travel to find it, to name it. So what I ended up doing was just saying, you don't deserve my attention, and let me collect the data that I have, because I can't necessarily pinpoint where this is
Yeah.
because I've looked at the curse field. I've looked at like the spiritual DNA implant. I have looked at what were some other, just like sometimes I've found things as film, like it's just like a film that you can. So I looked in kind of all those spaces and cleared. So I do feel like what you're saying about the sophistication is true. So I guess
Yeah.
what I just chose to do was say, you don't deserve my attention or my power any longer.
Yeah.
And then kind of not even name it, which is unusual for me, because usually I always do exactly what you're kind of describing, is I find it, I name it, and then I get my power back. But I felt like part of it was, can you get your power back without naming it? And I was like, yes, I can. I absolutely can. I can get because I think for me, I use light and power kind of interchangeably. To me, it's like my light is my power. My power is my light. They feel like one of the same. So that was kind of the shift. Now I am open. If there is more exploring that I need to do, I am 100% open to that. I don't claim that I have all the pieces. I mean, I am on a journey of healing, right? And that, I believe, that is until I transcend this body. So there may be other work that is waiting for me that I need to do in this space, and I would totally be open to that. But I feel like at the point that I came to with that interference, I couldn't name it. So I detached my energy from it and kind of plugged my core column back in, and then worked on my 13 chakra circuit being really truly aligned, like intentionally. And that made a big shift in my field.
I love it. I love it. That's exactly what I was kind of hoping that I would hear. And I think it's important for our listeners to hear, because what you're saying and what I'm hearing that you're saying is that you were seeing what natural tools and resources you had in the moment to be able to identify it so you could clear it. And then when it wasn't coming forward, you weren't going to force it. You just knew that this was not of your true light and that you came back to your central source of power. Am I accurate in saying that?
Yeah.
This is so important, because if you would have dug for that information, you maybe would have a few things. I think you maybe would have received information that was not ultimately ready for your system to be able to hold. You might not have gotten the right information. You might have driven yourself into psychosis in the process of trying to get the information, when really the greatest information that you needed was that was not an energy that I consent to in my light body.
Mm-hmm.
And that's enough.
Yeah.
And I stand by this as well. I think there were times when I first had my entity experience, because I had multiple past life entities that had tracked down my light body through multiple lifetimes, and then found me, brought me back home to my hometown, which is, to me, one of the most depressing places, because it's the place that I ran away from to build the life that I've built, isolating me, and then began attacking me every night. And up until that point, I had no understanding of nefariousness. I thought I was a creator of my reality. I thought I was God in the body. I thought that I would construct only what my vibration created, but obviously I had layers of interference from different lives, generationally, like so many different contracts and agreements I agreed to that I didn't understand. And I had no information about evil or the interferences of this world. And there was a very fine line for me between, okay, let me try to see what information comes forward. Let me look into this a little bit. And whoa, that's enough. Because I would take myself too far into needing to understand it and wanting to know, why did the universe create evil and why was it here and what about this and what about that? I think that there's a natural way to grow, to understand, to receive in the timing that our higher self and guides deliver the information, in the timing that the truth comes forward. And that's the recipe to actually be able to receive it. And that's really what I'm hearing from you is, if it comes forward and I'm meant to learn more, I will. Until then, here's my toolkit. I looked at it. I exhausted it. I did the work. It was still there. I revoked it. Now I'm in my column of light, so be it. And I think that that's a brilliant representation of the way to navigate the evolution of dark work as light workers on planet Earth.
Waking up can feel like your whole world is turned upside down, and there's no one there to catch you. Whoa! And so you ask yourself, who am I? What's my purpose? What are my gifts? And years later, you're still asking yourself the same questions. Cue the Sovereign Healer, the only psychic development and energy healing sovereign development school that'll help you understand your unique abilities without leaving your meditation cushion. Let's get it.
Can I also add in an element there that I feel like was very present that I didn't mention, and that is the realm of angels. So I believe the angelic presence is a very unique frequency that we can work with here on planet Earth. I believe that there is an angel for everything. There is an angel for tying your shoe, for fixing that light bulb, for walking to the store. There is an angel that will assist at any point, anywhere. You just have to ask. And it is a thick field. Now, I know there's interference with the archangels. I know there's things that can go on there too, but outside of that, during this time, I started to have an awakening that I had forgotten about the angels for like 6 months. And like, this is coming from somebody who, I mean, I have worked with the angels like really consistently for the past decade. And it came during this time, it came to my awareness. I haven't even asked the angels for help. And so what I felt as well during this period, and I'm kind of seeing it retrospectively now as we're in this conversation, is there was like a thick field that kind of came around me that was the angelic realm. And I really believe that the angels make everything sweeter. Like if there is a smell, it smells like chocolate chip cookies. If there is a feeling, it feels like warm cup of tea with honey drinking down your throat, right? Like there is just this very real, potent, nurturing, soft, safe gentleness that the angels bring. And once I kind of was working on this, I really did feel like there was this, it kind of felt like insulation, like a 12-inch insulation that went around my field as well. That to me, I would define as angelic. I almost want to say this, angelic interference.
So when we're talking about the angels, are we talking about a group of angels? Are we talking about a council of angels? Are we talking about just a frequency of angelic light? Help us understand and discern that.
I think it's bigger than language, but if I had to choose one of those options that you just provided, I think I would go with a frequency. It's a frequency dimension. I think once I go back to ultimate creation and I'm not in this body anymore, I'll be like, oh my gosh, I can't believe I called it that, right? Because I'll have the words or the wisdom to kind of piece these together. But for now, I feel like it is a frequency, and it's a very specific frequency. It's very different like than the Galactic Council. It's very different than working with Jesus the healer. It's very different when I go straight into God's light. Like those are very different. They have very different frequencies to me. And those are all places that I spend time in. When I work with the angels, and I know people work specifically with archangels. I don't. I love the archangels, but I specifically work with this realm. It feels like a realm of frequency, angelic light frequency, that are helpers, and they just help. And they help through the most creative ways. They help through people. They help through ideas. They help through light coming in the window, and they're there instantly. And I have never, like, when I work with Jesus on moving, like I used to struggle with chronic bladder infections for 12 years. I had debilitating chronic bladder infections, got every test done, was on every medication. All the doctors said, you don't have a bladder infection. We don't know how to help you. So I did a process called the healing codes. And I was on, you had to do these prayers, and you were doing them, somatically on your energetics. You were supposed to do these 3 sets of prayers for 90 days straight, 3 times a day. I was like, you know what? I can commit to 2. The 90th day comes around. And I had learned, this is a little pause on the story, I had learned with somatic healing that if your body is in the same position that it was in when any trauma or intruder or impact happened, like if you're in a car accident and you were sitting down in this position and you do your healing in this position, it's more likely to transmute through the body. If you were laying down, if you were standing up, if you were running, whatever that position was, if you get into that position when you're doing the healing, it's easier to move. So here I am, the 90th day, lying down in the bathtub, doing my session. And all of a sudden I get this memory and this image of being 5 years old. I lived in San Francisco, and we had the window open at night, and it was dark in the room. It was cold, and I was scared. And I had a lock up experience. I locked up my muscles, my ankles, my thighs, and then my bladder. 90th day session, I'm doing these prayers. I start seeing this truth. You don't have a bladder infection. You have a tight muscle that doesn't know how to relax. So I immediately brought in Jesus into the bedroom in my imagery, who was this bright light in this dark room, laid his hands on my bladder. My bladder warmed up, my entire body warmed up, and I never had another bladder infection. And that was over a decade ago. So the reason I share that is because Jesus' light, Jesus' healing, to me feels very different than the angelic frequency realm. So I also believe that we all carry truth in our heart, and we know when it's resonant, and we know what's true. And 2 things can be true at the same time because of where we're standing on the truth spectrum. If my friend is next to me, they have a little bit of a different angle on this truth sphere than I do. And this is where spiritual respect comes in, right? Like if Jesus doesn't ring true for you, that's okay. I'm not here to make it ring true. I'm here. All I care about is that you are connecting your heart with something greater, something bigger, that can be the light for you when you need it, because we all do.
Oh, we all do in these times more than ever, honestly. And I think the light of God in whatever way works for our energy field is going to become more and more imperative, because we're not going to be able to trust the world, this physical world that we see. None of it. It's all a show. It's all a charade. And we know this, but we also know that it is growing in its amplification in attempts to continue to siphon and pull from our light. And so the first thing is, I love this realm. I'm curious about it, because the way I work now is vastly different than the way that I used to. I would have been the kind of person who's like, oh, that sounds like so much fun. Okay, so now when I meditate, I'm going to try to call on this angelic realm that Sophie talked about in the podcast today. I'm going to call it forward and see if I can connect with it. Now it's one of those things where I'm like, oh, yeah, I could see what she's getting at. I think that's really beautiful. And I can see how Trickery would try to masquerade as an angel, and then here we go. So like my experience now, I'm like the kind of person who's went on so many dates and has kissed so many frogs that I thought were going to be princes. And now I'm kind of like, I would rather work with a frequency that comes through naturally for me. So for example, Jesus has been so supportive in my journey as of late, irrespective of any religious ideology or belief system. I believe that there is a Jesus that is true to somebody's individual walk, and through inviting him into your heart, you will come to understand in your own time, space. And I feel like in a situation that you were in, I could do what would be my definition of what you got to experience with that big wrap of light and all of the layers of protection. I could do the same thing through the command of Jesus Christ and calling in my dragon. So I think the point I'm trying to make here is it's beautiful that the way that you work with light and the realms and the connections that you have are true to the way that you work with the sophistication of interference on this planet that's connected to you and your light body and your plane. Mine's a little more extraterrestrial, so I work with a ninth dimensional council of Syrian beings and I work with them. So it's like the way that we work, the outlets that we work with when we connect with these beautiful, benevolent realms, it's individual to each of us. And I think that's a big takeaway for me, especially when we're working in this field where things are getting darker and more sophisticated and more advanced, that we're working with the light that is true for our natural order and the ways of which it's naturally coming forward to us.
Amen.
Yeah. Right? Because I feel like so many people, they'll listen to that and they'll go, okay, well, now I want to do that. It's like, whoa, wait. That could create something for you if that's not true for you. Like, sit with it in prayer, see where God takes you with that, meditate over that. And if that comes forward, that working with the angels and the realm felt like a home base for you, it felt like absolute truth for you, then have at it. Otherwise, we shouldn't just be like dipping our flavors into every sort of realm or every sort of modality or tool that's not true for us. Because I think that goes back to the point that you made about like that second phase of awakening. Because then we just get caught in the process. Now I want to access the angels and I want to talk to Jesus and I want this. It's like, that's where we get caught in the process because we're not trusting the things that we're naturally called to that is helping us integrate our own shadow and work with the evil and the darkness that is in this planet that is hijacking and trying to pull from our light. I'm curious what your thoughts are on that.
I mean, it makes me think of spiritual bypassing, right? So the most common topic I feel really, this was probably pre-2023. I feel like spiritual bypassing was a lot more common. I think we've gained a lot of collective consciousness around, oh, shadow work, inner child work. I need to face it. I know it doesn't feel good. I'll get through it. I feel like that's an amazing elevation and ascension that we have made collectively on this planet. Agreed. In seeing the contrast compared to 2023 earlier. However, I still think we try to bypass. I mean, I know I'm guilty of it myself. But with awareness, if we can bring it to the front of the neocortex and be like, okay, it's okay to face things that don't feel good and move through them as long as it takes to authentically accomplish and achieve whatever you're trying to work out through this space. And I think there's this concept that we spoke about with like, oh, if I face my shadow, if I go into that wound, I'm going to become low vibration. Yeah. And so then people are like, no. And, you know, there's, I think that a great topic to debate is Abraham Hicks, the approach of keeping that vibration high. You don't need to look at it. I respect their work fully. I have listened and read and studied so much of what they say, and I really appreciate some of that work. And I've always said, and there's room to do the authentic clearing. If we continue to buy furniture for a house that's already furnished, eventually we become a hoarder. And I like organized spaces. So if you want that, that's beautiful. Let's hold that in your field and let's figure out what we need to clear to make space so it can land and become embodied reality.
Yep.
rather than pretending or affirming a state that has no place to plug into inside of you, because ultimately you're holding a contradicting program.
It's so true. I actually had an amazing podcast yesterday with an extraordinary individual. I was a guest on it, and he and I were talking about the importance of actually being able to embody this work and how human and tangible and tactile and physical spirituality should be. It should be in the lived, in the tangible, in the way that we behave in the things in our lives, not, and then I'm going to vision and imagine and construct and create. And so I totally agree with the Abraham stuff. I'd be curious to know over time the ways of which Esther has managed to maintain a pure frequency. Because I believe that the majority of things, pretty much everything we see in this world that started pure is no longer pure, such as the food, the air, the water, the shelter, like everything that was pure has been distorted in some way. And so I would always want to challenge a channeler who is in multi-group vibrational spaces consistently over time, how they take care of their energy field and what their legitimate process is of clearing the coding in their light body, clearing the fragments that they've picked up from other people, how they navigate darkness and interference. Otherwise, honestly, I don't respect the channeler. I won't respect the channeler who doesn't talk about how they actually purify the frequency of their field to be the channeler, if that makes sense. So I respect the teachings. I think they're a little heady. But the beauty of the headiness of it is that it allows people to think positive and to construct and to create. I think that's great. I think it's very elementary, though. And so I would be curious about the sophistication of actually what it takes to keep the channel clear in order for me to trust the discernment of what's coming through that channel. So that's my kind of 2 cents on that. And I feel like that about a lot of channelers. Actually, I had a conversation with Livia Devi. Do you know who she is by chance? She's an Arcturian channeler, and she was offered $2 million to sell her mission to a very successful man who had a list of a lot of the mainstream channelers we see today that had sold their mission for millions of dollars. And she said no. And then she ended up being hospitalized because of psychic attack. She's on the podcast. It's a really great episode for any of our listeners. And she talks about how she was hospitalized and how the Arcturians told her, like, so you're going to die, but we will grab your soul from a different timeline and we will just swap. But you will forget everything, but you will come back alive. And that's exactly what happened. She basically died, soul swapped, came back to life, and lived to tell the tale about what was the cost of her not selling her soul, her mission, and how many quantum healers and channelers we see here today that have sold their soul. And so that's kind of where I stand on like the mainstream channelers right now. It's like, tell me how you discern what's in the room.
Yeah. So here's what's very true and real for me. I see this kind of through the psychic lens. I have never really understood the profession of being a psychic and claiming to read somebody's future. I feel like, holy crap, is this like a certificate on spiritual trespassing? Like, I understand that people are giving permission for this kind of thing to happen, but what I really emphasize to my students is I always want to know when it comes to like a psychic doing that kind of work. I know you were talking about channelers, but here's where my passion lies, is why are they doing this work? Why are they doing this work? And what are they getting from it by giving you something that they're saying, here's a template. I'm charging you for a template. Are you going to buy into it or not? I find that to be like, stay away. Like it's like red flag, stay away. You are giving your power away, to bring it full circle to what we're talking about. Like, you have power. You are a wireless, powerful being. God created the mountains and the sky and the rivers and the oceans and this planet, and then said, yeah, I need a you too. Right? Like, and we're walking around with this power, and then we're just giving it away to a psychic. We're giving it away to a Instagram reel. We're giving it away to a relationship. And I don't think we understand the cost of that. And if people wake up, so we have those 2 stages of awakening, right? We have our what I call the sparkle stage, and then we have the metamorphosis. And then we have that final stage where it's quantum. We come into quantum identity, where we are really stepping into new frequency. We are stabilizing a new template on the planet. The way that I see it is like grids. We start to set up a grid around ourselves, and that grid gets larger and larger. And so if you would imagine, have you ever seen those video games where you're like dancing and the blocks light up?
Yeah.
So what happens is your grid gets bigger and bigger and bigger. And so you can start calling in people just to step in the outside, and they start to access the new template. And I believe this template starts at 5th dimensional, but we are really going, I think, in my lifetime, we are going to 9D. Maybe some will experience 12D, but that's the potential. Even stabilizing at 5D, stabilizing your 5th dimensional template, not just stepping on somebody else's, but stabilizing your 5th dimensional template is such an accomplishment for planet Earth herself.
Yep.
Because she is stabilizing her template. So I'm getting off on a tangent here, but to bring it back, I think you were talking about the channeling and having discernment. I think it's very difficult to have discernment when we're not in our core central power. How can you even tell? Because you're going to be so influenced. You're going to be so uncertain, unsure, unclear of what the truth field feels like in you. When you're in your core column, you can feel the truth field. Like, it's just a knowing. It's your claircognizance on full fire. Like, that's a yes or a no. Boom, move on. There's no vacillating. There's no self-doubt. It's like, boom. So getting into your pure power, your pure light, it becomes a resolution, a solution code to discernment.
Ooh, I love that quote. Right there, that's going to be your next viral post. That one right there. I will like and share. Really, really, really love that, because that's exactly it. It's all here. And I personally have unsubscribed from getting forecastings for my vibration, because I don't even know what I'm having for lunch. But I don't want to be influenced by whatever potential timeline in this now moment someone is reading into that seems the most prominent, that then makes me think that I want a burger, but actually that burger was not what I wanted. What I actually wanted was this. And it takes a certain level of maturity to know that just because you could have it doesn't mean that you should. And if you realize that you have that information within you, and that your guides, your higher self, will deliver that information in the right time and space. Pew. The work that you will do internally to be able to stabilize trust in the timing of your life, that is a priceless ascension cheat code that you will now have the answer to, that you would have otherwise just outsourced to somebody who told you, okay, well, this is how you're going to be able to get this and buy this. This is how this is going to look. And as a reader, because I work as an energy healer, everything I do is about what comes forward naturally. And I never, unless it's rare that it comes through and it feels specific, never deliver prophetic, here's what's going to happen and here's how it's going to happen, because I'm not looking for it. And I also don't think that it is of natural growth in mind. I'm trying to help people grow my own light and my own yes, and this is my energy, and I'm sovereign, and I'm a being of God, and this is how that's what I want. Not, okay, they said that in 2 weeks I'm going to have this thing that's going to happen this way, and then I don't want someone to outsource the code. I want them to become their own code. I want people to know their own light body and build the dimensional landscape from within them naturally. And I think with a lot of channelings and a lot of psychics and the forecasting of that, I think we have to be mindful of where we are validating above our own inner capacity to know what is right for us in the right time, we're meant to receive it. And I think, again, that's like that next wave of light work. You know, you've done enough of your own dark work to be able to go, what part of me is looking for that information? And can I sit with that instead? That discomfort I feel about where I'm at in my life, the scarcity I feel about my mission, the vulnerability I feel about my visibility, and sit with that and transmute that so I can up level in my game instead of giving somebody else the power to tell me how I'm supposed to play it.
Whew. Yes.
But that at the core, I feel like is really what we're getting to here in this entire conversation we've had here today, Sophie, which is that, yes, I think light work is dark work. I really do. I think the light workers I see that are talking about the darkness with such a precision and embodiment, it is, to me, the definition of mastery of light. Because it's so much easier to shit sparkles and to say we're going to 5D, but without any of the sustenance and the reality of the interferences and process and experience that we have in order to be able to get there. So that's my kind of final word on this, is that I do believe that light work is dark work, and our ability to be able to transmute and be in our power and see, like the owl who has night vision, that to me is the true definition of light work.
And I would make just a slight edit to that. And it's light work comes from dark work. It's like, it's the portal. The dark is the portal. And it's the portal if you look across, different concepts. A seed goes into the dark to follow its intricate patterning, and it cracks open. The butterfly wraps itself in its own cocoon and goes into the dark to metabolize its own body, to come out with a new mission. A baby grows in a womb that is completely pitch black to start life. And so when we are in those spaces that feel dark, that feel heavy, that feel like it could be the end, maybe it's the beginning. And that is where I believe, if you ever feel like you are stuck in that place of despair, hope, lack of hope, there's nowhere to turn, you turn to God, whether that's closing your eyes and going in, whether it's putting your head up. I don't care what the action is, the somatic way that you choose. Reach out, cry out, because I believe that God said, here's the deal. You're going to go down to this planet. You're going to forget everything. It's going to be kind of a hot mess. You're not going to have any instructions, but here's what I guarantee you. You ever need me, you call me, I'll answer. 100% of the time, any heartbeat of your life, I am there. But I will not call you because you have free will. I will let you call me and I will answer. And so that is the nuance I think we need to remember, is that it takes the invitation to bring creator of all that is back in and then give it space. I like to say God lives in between the heartbeats as the electrical, before the electrical current that creates the rhythm of your entire life, never leaving, always there. That's how permanent God is. But God doesn't necessarily come through without the ask. Now, there is a facet to that, because I do believe in divine intervention, and I believe I've had a divine intervention, which is a story for another day. But, I think the general purpose of knowing that if you need light, if you are in the darkness, call to God, creator of all that is, divinity, whatever you want to, language you want to use, open and make an invitation, and God will answer.
Well, Sophie, this has been fucking wonderful. I'm not surprised, though. Are you?
No.
Right. We knew this was going to be great. And it was just like, I feel like if you and I were having a coffee like we were supposed to in Florida, this is exactly how this conversation would have went. The only difference is we've got a camera with us.
Yes, absolutely. And it was so funny how I got on the road and it was like 2 hours till Miami. I was like, oh my gosh, I'm not going to I'm 4 hours in the car and I have dinner plans. Like,
But you know, it was meant to be this way. And I think there's so much more for you and I in collaboration and connection. And this was just the intro, I guess. It was our first date and I'm very pleased. I think I would like another one.
Yes, I agree. Let's go.
Well, as always, at the end of the spiritual debate, we just leave the question with our listeners. Do they believe that light work is dark work? And now we leave it with them, and we'll let them discern for themselves. All right, everybody, I'm V, and this is Sophie, and we'll see you all again very soon.